Hi LinkedIn, hope you're well. Welcome to Wednesday's Walk and Talk. And you can see from the background actually, it's blue skies. I thought it was going to rain today again, but it isn't. And I'm actually walking and talking around a place called Calverley Park. Let me see if I can, it's about 10 minutes from where I live. It's beautiful. And actually the weather's great, so hopefully we won't get interrupted by rain. I live down in a place called Royal Tunbridge Wells. Mustn't forget the word royal. There's probably some of you on here nearby, and I was going to say, if there's anyone local, and you ever want to catch up a cappuccino on a Penthouse, which is where I'm living, please do. Anyway, today's walk and talk is about what I think is one of the most important things, if not the most important thing for a creative, which is your portfolio. This is your bread and butter. This is your Bible. This is what gets you work, and it's also what doesn't get you work. And I'll obviously going to cover the things that the mistakes you're making that's possibly not helping towards you getting a job. But this, for me, is what we're all about. It's not your CV. Your CV is just a guide. It's just a guide of where you've been, and occasionally it can help. It give me an idea where you've been, but the most important thing here is your work. It's your work that gets the first phone call. Work alone doesn't just get you the job, we know that. It's about your work and it's about you. But before we get onto you, the work has to be right. It has to be right for the job we're trying to fill. Now, what I've done here, for two reasons, I've written down some notes just in case I forget. Now, when you get to my age, we do forget a few things, and I want to make sure that I walk away from here. Well, where am I going here? I want to walk away from here knowing that I've given you everything I know concerned with portfolios and getting you a role. And if for some reason I forget, I'll probably add it on to next week's video. So that's the first thing. I've got them here to make sure I cover as much as I can, and because at my age you get a little bit forgetful. Not forgetful enough where I'm forgetting my kids' names or anything, but the odd little thing. So let's make sure I cover everything. So there's a little analogy I've got that I'm going to share with you, and it might always trigger or remind you of this conversation and the tips I'm going to give you. I want you to think of your portfolio like a car, like that car you've got. The old car, the new car, whatever car you've got. And that car you have, most of us are drivers, but even for those that aren't, you'll understand this. And that car was going to get you from A to B. Now that B could be anywhere. It could be going to work, coming back from work, picking up your kids, going shopping, going to see a friend. But it gets you from A to B. And to make sure you always get from A to B, you service that car, you MOT that car, you make sure it's always working. Because there's nothing worse than your car breaking down. Not only is it inconvenient, it's going to cost you money. So you're thinking, well, what's that got to do with the portfolio? Well, this is how I see it. Is right now, all of you are looking to get from A to B. Some of you, that A is you're in a job looking for a new job. And some of you, it's you're not in work and you're trying to get work. Right? That's your A. And your B is a role, is a job somewhere else. And you want to go from where you are now to where you want to get to, which is a job. And what you want to make sure is on the way, that portfolio of yours doesn't break down, that it is working. Because if it's not, it's going to cost you money like a car. And how is it going to cost you money? You're not going to get the job. So treat it like your car, service it, and MOT your portfolio, whether that's a website, a PDF, and I'll get onto that in a minute. And if you remember it as this analogy, silly or not, I think it's a great way to always remember it, right? Remember this video. So treat it like a car, service it, MOT it, look after it. Because after all, this portfolio is going to get you work. Or it's not going to get you work because it's not working itself. So, first thing, excuse with me, bear with me a second. Okay, now I'm going to share with you some really simple mistakes, And some of you will probably think, nah, that can't be true. But it is. And let me tell you, the biggest mistake that a lot of you make is when you apply for a role, you don't put a link to your work on it. Yeah, seriously. So you're applying for a creative role. It's that book, that portfolio of yours that's going to get me or whoever to call you because we feel that the work you've got is going to be a good fit for the agency. But if it's not on there, how can we know? I would say, honestly, 30% of the applications I get don't have a link. And I really do find it unbelievable that, because it is our link to our work. It's the work that's going to get us work. So, first thing is, always check that when you apply for a role, that your link to your work, your website, your PDF or whatever it is, and I'm going to get onto that, make sure it's there for us to see. We haven't got time to carry on getting in touch with people who haven't bothered doing that. We've got too many applications, we've got too much going on. And the way I look at it is, that says to me you don't respect your work, who you are, if you can't be bothered to put a link to your work on an application. So that's the first one, is there's no link. Make sure you put a link to your work. Second one, if you do put a link to your work, make sure it's working. Again, I cannot tell you how many people, when I click through and I get the old website expired or page not found, I'm thinking, wow, really? It means you're not checking. You're not checking the one thing that's going to get you possibly a job. And that's why I made the analogy with the car about breaking down, because if you break down in a car, you can't get to B. It's the same here. God, do you know, I'm fitter than what I thought. I'm almost puffing as I'm walking up this little hill. So again, if you're going to put the link on your CV, please check it. Make sure it works. Again, an obvious thing to a lot of you, but to a lot of you, it's not. And you're sending us, and I'm sure other recruiters, broken links. And we haven't got time to keep going around every single one who either haven't got a link on there or it's broken. We just wouldn't have time to do it. So please, make sure your link works. Okay, this might cause, you're going to have different opinions on this one, but it's the password thing. Okay, I'm not a fan of passwords because it makes it harder for me to look at your work. Now, I get it when some people have NDAs, and what I would do if that's really the case, when you do apply for a role, obviously put the password on your CV. So if you really are adamant that you want to keep to a password because you just don't want any Tom, Dick and Harry looking at it, fine, that's your choice. But please make sure that when you apply for a role and you give me a link, and you give me a link that works, which is all great, please give me the password so I can get in. Now that password, it can make it difficult. It makes it difficult for us to when we're searching for example. It makes it hard for us to find out about you when we're just looking. And I'll get onto that in a minute. But again, please, if you really do believe you need a password, please make sure when you apply that you put a password on it. Okay, that are the three what I would call really big mistakes, obvious ones. They're mistakes that you can actually correct really simply. Not a lot of work in it. Even today, go on. First of all, make sure that link is on your CV. 2, make sure it works. And 3, if you are requiring a password, please put it on there. Now the next thing is, what sort of portfolio should you have? Now I'm a big fan of websites, prefer them personally, but generally it seems to be websites or PDFs, and that's fine, okay? And again, I'm going to go in a bit more detail about that in a minute. So websites and PDFs I would say are fine, but what I would say isn't, or makes it really I think awkward sometimes, is I sometimes get a Google Docs link. I even had someone the other day, and he was actually been in a long time, very high profile, ECD, CCO level, and he's just sent me a link to a keynote presentation, 40 or 50 pages, and no setups, nothing. It was just a load put together, and it just looked like it had been a student who hadn't bothered to put it together. And for me, again, it's like, I'm thinking, wow, you don't respect your work. So I personally wouldn't. I'd get rid of any Google Docs, any keynote, anything like that, I'd get rid of. Or if you're going to do that, please make it professional. Please put it together well. Think about that. But for me, I will stick to websites and PDFs. Okay, so let's talk about websites at the moment. I had a website, still have a website. And actually, some of the things I've learned, I'd probably make tweaks to it now. Obviously, I don't need to. So I think the first one to talk about is navigation. Make it really simple. KISS, as they call it. Keep it simple, stupid. So when we land on your website, it's really easy for us to navigate. And what I would say to you guys is, the audience you're going to be sending your work to is going to vary. It's going to be to recruiters, okay? Sometimes it's straight to the CD. Sometimes it might go to someone else. And I would say, like you do now as a job, is to think about the audience you're talking to, okay? Because you and I know when we're talking about, when you've got a brief, audience is so important. You know, who we're talking, our audience determines not only who we're talking to, but what we're talking about, where we're talking about that. So think about that. And the way I would look at it is, I've done 30 years as a creative, so there's a lot of things I'll pick up on that maybe others might not. And I would say, make it as easy for that person when they get your link to your website or whatever, make it easy for them to navigate, make it easy for them to look at your work. Oh yeah, something that does come up a lot is, so how many brands, how many campaigns should you have in your portfolio? Good question. Okay, I'm not sure there's a right or wrong here, and everyone is different. Some people do what I call teaser, thinking that's enough just to tease someone. I don't think that's enough at all. Some people I've come across have put 40 or 50 different pieces of work in there, right? That's much too much. I'm not going to get time to look at that. And certainly the person we're sending it to, often a CD, they're not going to either. I've seen portfolios of 6 pieces of work, not enough. I personally, I think I had about 24 pieces in my portfolio. I would say never less than 15 campaigns, probably no more than 25. Okay, give or take. I've seen sometimes too many, and it's too much work on some portfolios, and it'll take you all day to look at it. And sometimes there's not enough. And I know people think, oh, I'm just teasing you, just give. But that's not what we want. I don't want to be teased. I want to be able to see whether it's your ideas or your designs and executions. I want to see them properly. So I would personally go anywhere between 15 and 25. Some of you are going to agree with that right now, some it doesn't matter. But that's what I would say. Enough for the person hiring or who I send on to be able to get a good look at you, who you are, your ideas, whether you're designer, the execution, whether it's an art director or writer, and your big ideas. Okay, what we got next? Okay, I just sort of mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I personally, it's really important, this I think, is I would make your work visible on LinkedIn or wherever it is. Because, one part of my job is I go searching. So every recruiter on here will go searching. They'll get a brief. They'll have certain ways of, they'll put a job ad up. They'll have your own database. You'll have your own people you know. And one of the things we do, is, I'm going to turn around and go this way now, is when we go searching. Now, when I go searching, sometimes creatives will have that link on there and others won't. The thing is, again, it's timing thing. I haven't got time to keep sending messages every time. Oh, please, can you send me a link? I personally would say, put it on there. Now, I know there's some of you who don't want to do that, right? And you think you only want to send it out when it's asked for. And I get that, and do that. But for me, it's like the lottery, right? If you've got one ticket, you've got one chance of winning it each week. If you've got 20, you've got 20 chances. If you're not in it, you can't win it. So I would say, make it as visible as you can, your work. Because someone just might happen to be going through LinkedIn, click on that, oh, I really like that, I'll get in touch with them. If it's not on there, they can't do that. So personally, I would say it's visible, but I know I've had this conversation, some of you don't like that, you only want to send it out if you're applying or if you feel there's a good reason to, and I get that. But personally, I would say make it visible. What have I got here? Now it looks like I've gone through most of the things there now. So I think I've covered most things, and I really hope this helps you. Now, if I've missed anything, of course I'll probably add it to next week's video. Next week, I think the plan for me is to do a video on applying for the roles and all the mistakes that some of you are making, and to give you tips on improving your chances when you apply for that. So in a nutshell, look, so I've been gone 15 minutes, which is sort of long enough now, walking around this beautiful Calverley Park, as we can see. Actually, I thought it was going to rain today, but I've come out a little bit early just in case it does, just so I can get across this, because for me, this is the thing, this portfolios is so important. And I do believe, I think we take it for granted sometimes. We have a link, whether it's a PDF or website or whatever, I just send it to them. Whereas, you know, there'll be a few of you on there that's been in it, was in it as long as me, and goes back to the 90s and the 2000s. And those were the days we had a physical portfolio, you know, your big A2 box, shall we call it, with laminates, and then the A2 thinner one, and then the A3. And when I look back at it, which I'd never really thought about before, is because it was physical, we probably took more care of it, because it was something that was visible in front of you. It's something you checked. And before any of us went to an interview, we would just go through the work and make sure it's there, and make sure it's the right work that's in there. And maybe it's because it's digital now, or it's a PDF and it sits on your computer. And maybe that's why we don't give it enough attention. That's why we don't service it. So I would say to you, even right now, go to your link, go to your work, check it, see if it's working, see if it's on there. If you need a password, put it on there. Have a look at your website. Is it easy to know? Oh, forgot, there is one thing, and I don't even have this. One of the things often happens is someone will have a campaign and you'll scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll all the way down. It takes 2 minutes to see all the work, right? Even if it's great work. Then you get to the bottom and you've got to scroll all the way to the top. You then have to press the home page button, go back into work. It's a long process. Now, a lot of you, which is really great, is when you get to the bottom of all your work, it will say next project, or it'll even name the next one. I cannot tell you how helpful that is. I don't have that actually on my website now, don't need it now. But that's something I will say, if you haven't got that, add it in. I'm sure it won't take long to get someone to do that. But again, think about your audience, who you're talking to, who are you sending this link to. Think about them not having 30 years creative experience like me. Think of them, right, in a way that you've got to do everything for them, just to help you, right? So get that portfolio working, so that gives you the best opportunity of being put forward for that role. And as we know, and I said it earlier on, for me there's two parts to hiring someone. The first one, for a creative, let's look at your work, whatever format that's in. Is it any good, and is it right for the role and the person looking for it? If that works right, then I and all the other recruiters will call you, and then we'll have that conversation and make a decision on whether we think you're right for that. But you won't get that phone call from me. I can't talk for other people because I do it differently maybe. But from me, I need to see your work. I need to make sure, because I'm sending you over to an agency that hopefully I've understood really well. I know what they're looking for. Don't always get it right, but most of the time I do. And I want to make sure at least your work is going to be right for them. And then the conversation we have after, hopefully you'd be a good fit, and then let things sending you over. So today, guys, if you get an opportunity, check your website, check your PDFs. Oh, another thing, I nearly forgot, these notes, they ain't working. On the PDFs, I see some absolutely beautiful PDFs put together, classy, as you scroll down the PDF, it's not just the work that's great, but the way it's presented, and that does make a difference. And then I see PDFs that have just got, it just looks like someone's just thrown everything at it, you know, and on one page, as you go down, call your screen one page, and as you scroll down, I see some people put 10, 12, 15 pieces of work on one page basically, and it's really small. And sometimes you've got motion going on next to still, so you're seeing 15 pieces of work, some of it's moving, and it looks a mess. And I can't click in to any of them so I can look at the work on its own. You know, these people want to see your idea, they want to see, they're looking at design, they want to see the topography, the kerning, the space, the lettering, how's it working. They don't want to, they can't get it down, they can't go and look at it if it's really minute. And when you've got a portfolio of every page has about 15 pieces on, because people are trying to cram in everything, I'm telling you now, it doesn't work. Go back and look at your PDF, and I would restrict it. You know, if you've got some beautiful press or posters, DM, when I land on it, just have one piece of DM cut in a few places. If you've got 8 posters, don't put 8 on it, just put 2, one, you know, 2 side by side. It might add on a few pages to your PDF, but trust me, the most important thing here also is your work. So it might mean you need to cut down on some of your work. So if you've got 30 pages at the moment, and it's got 15 pieces on each one, that's too much anyway. It's just Sunday, I'm just trying to walk around, make sure I don't become just a shadow. So again, yes, nearly forgot that. If you've got a PDF, have a look at it again. Don't put 15 pieces on per page. Let your ideas breathe, let your designs breathe. Give that creative director who's hiring an opportunity to really see your work properly. Give it some space. You know, actually, we always talk about white space, even when we're talking about ideas in design and art direction. One of the things, you know, we always try and do is make those, well, you know, let's call it an ad, whatever it is, DM, banner, social, posters, press, whatever. We say keep it simple, right? So, you know, because it's at the end of the day, it's communicating a message. So make sure when they look at it, it's not too busy, because you know, and I know, if it's too busy, we'll just turn away. And it's the same with portfolios. If you just send someone a busy portfolio, they're not going to bother. And it goes back to what I said earlier on. Have respect for your work, because it's your work that's going to get you work, and it's work that ain't going to get you work. And that's just as important. And that's why I always said, treat it like your car. Service it, MOT it. Go back every couple of months, check the link's working. Anyway, I think that's it for today. What we've got, 22 minutes. I hope that's not too long, guys. I've really enjoyed this. And actually the sun's out. I thought it was going to rain earlier, but it's not. I think I've timed it right. So I'm going to get back now, and this afternoon I'm going to put this on. So I hope you've enjoyed my Wednesday's walk and talk. Next week, I'll be talking about applying for the role. Some of the myths that are out there, some of the mistakes you guys are making, even I made, or even maybe I didn't realise I was making it, but was doing it. Because remember, the most important thing here is, I've been on your side, spent 30 years doing it. Some of these mistakes I made, I didn't make the mistakes of not putting a link on or a link that's not working, but some of these other things, I did it too, right? So again, this is my opinion, there's no wrongs or rights. These are just little tips as well on how hopefully I can help you improve your chances. I'm not saying I can't guarantee he's going to get you a role at all, but I think it'll improve your chances. Just some of the tips I've given you, some of the things I've talking about. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the Wednesday, enjoy the rest of the week, and I will catch up with you next Wednesday. See you later.